Are you ready to flee? This year is jam-packed with slashers. From the Halloween to the Black Phone, dozens of hair-raising horror and thriller films are hitting cinemas and streaming services this summer. So prepare to get your heart racing, because today we're diving into the scariest, most anxiety-inducing new thrillers soon to hit the market. Try not to trip. First up, Halloween Ends. After 45 long years, Myers has put on that terrifying mask again to commit grisly murders in the town of Pasadena, California. This new thriller, which is going to be the end of the popular Halloween trilogy, is expected to hit the theaters somewhere in October this year. The movie is going to bring the curtains down on the story that began with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills in 2021, both of which were actually the sequels of the classic movie saga of horror that began in 1978. We're going to see Jamie Lee Curtis, the lead of the first Halloween from '78, once again return as Laurie Strode to have the final duel with the infamous legend Michael Myers. The end is also apparently going to feature some more characters from the first OG Halloween release, who will gang up with a new group of young people to stop this crazy killer in the mask. Now, the plot of the recent releases may have been kinda meh, but since it's born from a quintessential slasher saga, we're definitely expecting to see a lot of blood and gore and better jump scares from the new one. Also, we've seen this stubborn masked slasher stabbed, shot, burned, and yet he always returns, so it'll be interesting to see how the movie finally puts a lid on this guy for good. Next, Jeepers Creepers Reborn. The weird creature that gave us the heebie-jeebies first in 2001 is going to reappear in the city, this time claiming a share of Gen Z's fresh blood. Sir, you are going to choke on it, but be our guest. Apparently, the film was done and dusted back in February 2022, but thanks to the pandemic, it never got released. Until now, everything seems to indicate that it'll most likely hit theaters this year. In the sequel, we're going to see a new lead called Chase, along with his girlfriend Lainey, who has visions about the creeper. The duo somehow ends up in Louisiana, not knowing that the ghost of this city's past is still haunting it. It'll be the fourth addition to the saga that began in 2001, and since then, it's considered a horror classic, on par with Halloween and Friday the 13th. But we've seen how the hype has been dying down with each horror classic sequel, so will it be the same for Jeepers Creepers, or will it fulfill the fan expectations? We're going to have to wait a little bit more and see. And now, Terrifier 2. A clown figure has sailed through the waves of the wannabe horror clowns and landed among the greats. Yep, we're talking about the creepy Art the Clown, who made a brilliantly gory debut on Terrifier, and fans wanted a sequel ASAP after the original was released back in 2016, which never came, all thanks to that darned pandemic. The shooting came to a standstill, and apparently, if the rumors are to be believed, then it was wrapped up in 2021. A year later, we're still waiting for the creators to announce a release date. Now coming to the teaser for the new slasher film, we can see Art in a much creepier and questionable drip, and Samantha Scafidi making a comeback as Victoria Hayes. In the sequel, Art returns to Miles County after being resurrected by a sinister entity, where he must hunt down and slay a teenage girl and her younger brother on Halloween. As the clown's murdering spree continues, the siblings fight hard to survive while trying to uncover the truth behind Art's evil motives. It may be very late, but the production team promises a bigger, better, and more gory, if that's even possible, sequel, and we can't wait to see what they've got in store for us. Up next, Firestarter. Based on a novel by Stephen King, Firestarter is another much-awaited thriller starring the haughty Zac Efron, who will be playing the lead, Andrew McGee. The story revolves around his daughter, who develops an ability to set things on fire with her mind. You know, like Elsa, but make it fire. But after a few incidents, a secret government agency realizes the girl's gift and decides to go after her, turning it into a major destructive mess that soon spins out of control. Will Andrew be able to protect his daughter? And will Stephen King's novel live up to the incredibly high expectations? Well, you'll have to check out the Firestarter to find out. Now, we have Salem's Lot. Looks like the thriller horror producers are running out of ideas, and everyone is flocking to Stephen King's books for some inspo. Salem's Lot is another novel by the American actor that's going to be turned into a thriller film this coming September. But this isn't the first time the 1975 book has been turned into a movie. It had a whole miniseries in 1979. In 1987, we saw it turned into a movie, and then in 2004, TNT came up with another movie for TV. It didn't end there. In 2018 and 2021, we saw the series Castle Rock and Chapelwaite, too, based loosely on these novels. So by now, you probably have a good idea about how acclaimed this piece of literary work actually is. This time though, the 2022 version claims to surpass all previous adaptations of the novel that revolves around vampires and other supernatural creatures. Although we feel vampires and Draculas have been overdone in the realm of horror and don't really give us that spine-chilling thrill anymore, we'd still like to see how this new adaptation manages to outdo the previous versions. Now for Evil Dead Rises. Evil Dead has to be one of those thriller horror films that gave us goosebumps and sleepless nights for days after watching it. The last we saw of this horror was in 2013, almost a decade ago. And now, just like other thriller franchises, it's back, all ready to rip you a new one, tear you apart, and be unapologetically rude about it. This new sequel of The Evil Dead, rather than focusing on disasters at the cabin or the witchcraft from the Middle Ages, shocks expectations, not only with the new setting, but also with having women at the forefront of the film. The story revolves around a woman who makes a visit to her older sister and her 3 children. The reunion is cut short by the craziness provided exclusively by the infamous Witchcraft and Neurocranium book that remains the core of the franchise. Soon, flesh-possessing demons swarm the apartment, and the family is forced to battle for survival. The future thriller is, in fact, a sequel to the original franchise, but as far as we know, Bruce Campbell won't be making an appearance, since he's retired and all, nor are we certain about the release date yet. All we know for now is that it's going to be super creepy and hopefully come out somewhere at the end of 2022. Up next is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The cult classic's indiscriminate bloodshed is now available on Netflix. The slasher thriller was released in February, and it is a direct sequel to the 1974 thriller Texas Chainsaw, but set 50 years later. It's out, and we've watched it, so here's a brief summary. No major spoilers, so you don't have to skip this part. A group of young, gullible friends, cough, cliche, visit the remote city of Harlow to value some properties and sell them, but they run into a really old Leatherface who won't be very welcoming after they demand that the orphanage he stays at vacate the property. This is obviously followed by a whole lot of bloodshed that gets too much at times. We also see an old and sole surviving character from the original saga, Sally Hardesty, make an appearance as a hardcore ranger. Will she get him, or will he finally do what he couldn't 50 years earlier? You'll have to find out for yourselves. And we too think it struggled to live up to the original standards, but it still managed to bring back the 70s thriller gore nostalgia and that popular chainsaw that gave many of us nightmares for days. And finally, we have The Black Phone. The Black Phone isn't Ethan Hawke's first dive into the realm of horror thriller, but it might be his most anticipated thriller to date. The supernatural horror film follows a serial murderer who abducts children in a suburban Colorado community. His 6th victim, a young baseball pitcher named Finney Shaw, wakes up in a soundproof room, realizing that he's trapped and the only thing within reach is a disconnected phone. The twist? This really old-looking black phone can transmit the voices of Grabber's previous victims, and the boy's sister experiences psychic dreams about her brother that lead her to hunt for him. And you know something truly creepy? Variety magazine described the thriller's trailer as scarier than COVID's Delta variant. Yikes, that's messed up. We're not sure if that's a good thing or bad, so we guess we'll have to wait until the end of June to figure that one out. And that's a wrap for today's video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.